everybody, it's Jenny, and today I'm sharing a card for missing stamps using some of the newest additions to the Magic Collection, starting here with the Letters stamp set, along with the Letters coordinating dies. And before we get started, we'll just take a quick peek at all of the images and sentiments that come in this awesome stamp set. So for my card today, I went ahead and started by stamping and coloring a bunch of images from the set. And now I'm just going to go ahead and cut apart the dies. Next up, I lined up all those dies and held them in place with some washi so I could go ahead and run those through my die cut machine. And I did want to mention that there are 8 different envelope images and only 7 envelope dies. And that's because there are 2 envelope images that have the same shape, so you can just go ahead and use that same die twice. Now that I have all my images colored in and cut out, I'm just going to go ahead and set those aside to start working on my background. So for my background, I'm going to be doing some ink blending. So I'm going to bring in my glass mat and the new Magic Triangles stencil. And I'm going to be doing the blending on a piece of watercolor paper with some Delicata gold ink. For my background, since I was going to be adding all my colored images on top, I wanted it to be somewhat subtle but textured at the same time. So at first I went in and added some ink to the corners. Next up, I'm going to do some ink smushing, and so I'm just going to take that ink pad and go ahead and smush that onto my glass mat. And then I'm going to spritz that down with some water and lay my watercolor paper right on top. I'm going to pick it up and then smush it down a couple different times across the paper. Then I'm going to use my heat tool to go ahead and dry down the panel. Once the panel is dry, I'm going to bring in the stencil again and go ahead and darken up some of those areas. And finally, for an additional bit of texture, I'm going to go ahead and use that gold ink to add some splatter. May be difficult to tell from far away, but once you bring the panel close, you can really see all the different textures, and everything has a nice gold shimmer. And to bring together the rest of my card, I'm going to use this Witches and Wizards paper pad from my stash, along with a couple different frame dies from the EIEIO frame set. So I'm going to use this smaller rectangle die for my ink blended panel. And then I'm going to use this stitched rectangle die to get my A2 size panel from this envelope pattern paper. And then finally I'm going to use the scallop die on this red star pattern paper. And then I'm going to go ahead and run each of those through my die cut machine. And once I have everything cut out, I can start layering those up and adding my images. After I played around with the placement of my images for a little bit, I decided to go ahead and create my sentiment. And for that, I'm going to bring in a piece of red cardstock from that same paper pad, as well as some white detail embossing powder, and I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss my sentiment. Once everything is nice and melted and set in place, I'm going to go ahead and trim that out and add that to the card front as well. Off camera, I went ahead and glued everything down with some liquid glue. Everything except the boy image and the sentiment. I went ahead and used some double-sided tape to add that to the card front and decided to pop up the boy image with some foam tape. So once I have that in place, I'm just going to go ahead and pop him on there as well. And for the final step, I'm going to add my card front to a card base. And here is a closer look at my finished card. I love the shimmer of the gold background and how subtle it is and how you could just see the patterned triangles peeking through. So as always, thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!